Welcome to Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show, brought to you by Bull Realty, the show for property owners and business leaders. Host Michael Bull brings you market analysis, advice, and opportunities around Atlanta.
Welcome and thanks for joining us. We have been getting a lot of questions about the timing in the market right now. Is it a good time to sell my property? And along with that, we also get questions about, well, if it is a good time, some other questions about selling property. Do I need to get an appraisal if I'm selling my property? Should I use one agent or should I use several agents? And if I'm going to use an agent, how do I pick the right agent to sell my property? Also, I get this question a lot from sellers is, well, how can I help my property sell faster and for more money? What should I do? And then finally, another question we get a lot is from people that, not when they list with Bull, but they list with other people, right? What can I do if my property is not selling? So let's get started with timing. Is this a good time to sell your property? Well, first of all, that's a personal question based on your property and your mission and your goals. So if some things to consider are, one, look at the lease expirations or lease expiration if it's a single tenant property. Look at the maturity on your loans. Look at the equity in the property and what you might do with the equity. Maybe you can do a 1031 and transfer that equity into properties that would create more cash flow and or build more wealth. So I think you want to look at your overall mission personally to see if it's the right time. Or maybe your company uses this space and you've outgrown this space. It's time to sell or lease the property. So, but if you're talking about, if your question is more of, is it the right time to sell my property based on the economic reasons, the timing of the cycle, well, and on the cycle in Atlanta, well, it is a very good time, and it might be different for each type of property, size property, class of property. For example, multifamily may be a little ahead in the cycle from other properties. Then you have the class of properties, it may be a better time to sell a Class A core asset than is to sell a C property. The other thing I would look at is interest rates, right? So everyone expects interest rates to continue to climb in the next 1 to 2 years. That obviously affects the timing. We're already hearing from purchasers investing and making offers on properties around the country that their cost of capital is going up, and that they're going to have to adjust their offers to get the same yield. So if interest rates go up, and here's an example. If interest rates go up, let's say 2% in the next 2.5 years, what might the cap rate do on your property? Well, let's say the economy's good, the market's good, and the cap rate only goes up 1%. Interest rate hike of 2, and a cap rate hike of 1. Well, depending on the size of your property, we did an analysis for a 60,000 square foot office building the other day. The value change was $2.5 million, and we did that for a small property that was around $1 million the other day, and the value change was $132,000. So I think if you're going to sell a property in the next 4 or 5 years, then you may want to consider the timing right now. Another question that we get a lot is, if I'm going to sell my property, should I get an appraisal? Typically, the answer to that is no. Now, if you're a bank or some institution that, for regulatory reasons, you have to have an appraisal in the file, by all means, you need an appraisal in the file. But even banks that would call us and they're looking to sell a property, they will put the appraisal in their file, and they will ask our brokers that specialize in the property type, what can I get for this property? What do I need to do, and what can I get for the property? So remember, an appraisal by definition is an opinion of the person doing the appraisal as of that date. So since it is an opinion, most properties, you only need one buyer, or really any property. You need one buyer, not several. So you only need one opinion that you like to sell your property. Now, the purchaser is going to need an appraisal. If he's getting a new loan to buy your property, he will pay for that. He will order that through his new lender. But as far as a seller, do you need an appraisal? What if the appraisal comes in high? Or what if it comes in low? When we are talking to sellers, and if you call us and you're considering selling your property, we're not going to ask you if you've had it appraised. We're going to ask you if you've had a recent market analysis to see what the property would bring with good marketing in the current market conditions. And because that's really the answer. It's what will it bring if you have good marketing. In fact, part of the definition of appraisal is what a property will sell for if it's marketed properly and given the proper amount of marketing time. So that's another challenge with getting an appraisal before you put it on the market. You don't have that definition. So when you have a buyer who has a contract, well, you fulfill part of the definition of an appraisal, in my opinion. Makes it a little easier for the appraiser to go out and look for the market conditions to verify the value. And if you don't have that contract, sometimes appraisers might tend to be a little conservative. They are looking at past sales, and like I mentioned before, we're already seeing that buyers are adjusting offers. So I think you're going to see cap rates start rising up when the second quarter reports come out. Well, stay tuned. We'll have more about choosing agents and how to help your property sell for a higher price. Stay with us.
Raise the value of your commercial real estate project by telling your story to a national TV audience. CRE Groundbreakers, a new branded content series coming to TV this fall. Details at barnescreativestudios.com.
Welcome back. Well, today we're talking about selling commercial real estate, land, or apartments. In the first segment, we talked about the timing. Is it the right time to sell your property? We also talked about should you get an appraisal before you start the process? Well, now let's go to a question that a lot of sellers have, and that is, should I use one agent to sell my property or several? So you might have several agents that you've talked to and you tell them, hey, we'll sell the property and this is the information on it. And you may think, well, there's more agents working on the property. Typically, that is not the way to go. First of all, those agents do not represent you. They have not entered to an agreement to represent you. And they have to have a written agreement with you to represent your best interest. Also, they don't have the motivation that one agent would have, because they don't know if you're going to sell it yourself or someone else is going to sell it while they're in the process of trying to do what they do. And they have to have written permission to market your property out there in any kind of big way. So you could give them open listings in writing, but this is what I would recommend. I would pick a broker and with an exclusive assignment representing your best interest to properly market the property, report to you, and maximize the value of the asset and do it in a matter of time that works for you. And that is the best way, because now that agent knows that, look, I can put a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money, a lot of my team and resources into this because we know we're going to get paid. I know it is a contingency-based fee, typically, but we have an exclusive. The seller's serious about selling it, and now they will put their team on the mission. So another question that we get when it comes to that, if you're going to pick one agent, is, well, how do I pick an agent? How do I choose the right agent to sell my property? Well, there's a lot of things to consider. Let's hit a few of the highlights. One is to check and see who's selling property similar to yours, if you can figure that out. Size, property, range, type, size, property, and area. Who's out there actively selling it? Then I would ask peers, if you know people who own similar kinds of properties, who they've used or who they see selling properties. The other thing is to do an internet search for properties that are for sale like that and see who's actively out there selling properties. Another great thing about seeing who's actively selling properties is you may get an idea of how well they're doing it by seeing what they're doing. For example, we got a call a couple of days ago from a seller of some land for some apartment land in Florida because he saw that we were marketing another land parcel in Florida for apartments, and he loved what we were doing, the offer memorandum, the package, the marketing, the response he got from calling in as a potential buyer. So you can get an idea of what they're doing. Now, when you look for those agents, what I would do is pick probably 2 or 3 of them and ask them to meet with you and tell you what they think about the property, the market, what they recommend is an asking price range, and what they would specifically do to market your property. Now, this is where it becomes really important, especially if you want to maximize the value of your asset, and who doesn't. So ask them how they're going to market it. Here's a couple key questions. One is, what type of marketing systems are you going to use? What is the size of your database of potential purchasers for my property? Are you going to use e-marketing systems? Are you going to use websites? Are you going to use some of the properties listings systems out there for commercial properties? Another question I would ask is, are they going to cooperate with agents, other agents within their own company, and with other companies around the country, and cooperate with them to help sell the property? And also, are they going to compensate those agents? If your listing agent is compensating other agents in the marketplace, and if your agent's known for doing that, you might get more demand for your property. And look, the value of everything is impacted by the law of supply and demand. So what you want to do is create as much demand as possible to get the maximum price for your property. There's a lot of agents, especially on income properties, that don't cooperate with other agents. They don't share their fee with other agents, even at their own company. So what you might think you're getting is national marketing. You're really getting the database of that agent or team. So I would ask if they do compensate agents, how much they're compensating agents, and when they do it. We had an agent from a very big company join us one time after a sales meeting. He said, "When can I sell Daniel's listings? New listing. We could sell that now." He goes, He said, "When do you allow?" And then the next week he said, "When do you allow other agents from other companies? How many months into the listing until you start telling some other agents about it at other companies?" I said, "That's day one." He said, "Michael, that's not done in the marketplace." And I told him, "Well, it's done here because it's what's right for the client." Does it require more work? Yes. Does it require more vetting of the buyers? Yes. Are we paid well enough to do all that? Yes. And that's, if you're going to have integrity in your business, and if your mission is to maximize the value of the property, then that's absolutely what you should do. If you want some more tips on hiring the right agent, feel free to reach out to me through our website at bullrealty.com, and stay with us. We're going to give you some tips about how you can help get a higher price for your property. Stay with us. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you in part by your friends at Bull Realty. When your business requires proven performance, visit bullrealty.com or call 800-408-BULL. Welcome back. Well, today we're talking about, is it the right time to sell a property? Do I need an appraisal? Do I use one agent or several? We covered those in the first 2 segments. And then we talked about how to pick the right agent. One other thing about picking the right agent is I would look for an agent who focuses in your market area and focuses on your property type. To give you an example, we just accepted an assignment in our healthcare division by Paul Zeman, who heads up the healthcare division, and he accepted an assignment to sell a large medical office building. There was a company managing the property and leasing the property that could have sold it for the owner, and the owner told them, he said, "Hey, I want an agent who wakes up every morning and sleeps, eats, breathes, and dreams of selling commercial medical office buildings all day long, that he's not leasing properties, that he's not managing properties, that he is every second of the day working to sell a property." So I think you want to look at that, especially if it's a larger asset, over $5 million, or maybe over $3 million. If it's a shopping center, look for an agent who just sells shopping centers. If it's self-storage, just sells self-storage. Senior housing, they just sell senior housing, and so forth and so on, office, industrial. a medical office. We have brokers who that's all they do all day long, and that's all they've studied all their career, and they do a good job of it. So you have a broker that has a great efficiency, and they understand the marketplace, they understand the buyer's method of operation, they have a great database of buyers. So that's another thing I would look at. Not necessarily a company that just does one thing, like we have some brokers who just focus on single tenant net lease properties. I wouldn't at our shop, but I wouldn't look at the overall company that only does one thing, because then you might just have that narrow focus of buyers. Sometimes some of the highest paying buyers may be those outliers that have just sold their business, or they're new in the marketplace in the general area geographically, or they're coming from multifamily, coming to single tenant net lease. So, but I would look, so not a company that specializes, but an agent and team that specializes. Okay, one of the things that we get asked a lot, and they call us and say, hey, my property's not selling. Typically it's listed with someone and their concern is not selling. So we look at three major things. One, how is it priced? Is it priced appropriately? Obviously, if it's priced too high, the best market in the world is not going to help you. So we look at that. The second thing we look at is, how is it marketed? How well is it being marketed? And we can check from our end, how many systems is it out there in? Like, for example, for sellers who want exposure on properties, we can expose properties in over 400 websites, over 17 marketing systems, and up to 7 e-marketing systems. So, everybody today, or half the people today, when they start looking for something, go to the internet and start searching around. So, you can look around and see how well it's marketing. When you go to those systems, how well does it show up? Is there an offer memorandum? So we can kind of look and see how well it's marketed. And then third major component of your property's not selling, what we would check out is see how the property shows. How well does it show? How easy is it to be shown? And the same thing if your property is for lease. Those same three things come up. It's price, it's marketing, and how well is it shown, how assertive are the leasing people. So if you want us to look at a property that's not selling or not leasing, you know what? Sometimes we'll look at it and the agent's doing a great job and the owner is upset with the agent. Well, it's not really the agent. They're doing a great job. It's just overpriced. And then sometimes say, well, why didn't the agent tell me? Well, that's another story, but that's sometimes not the agent's fault. And then to close the show, I get this question a lot. How can I help as a seller for my property to sell for a higher dollar amount? Well, one of the things we just mentioned is how well it shows. So how well does it show? The property, the deliverables, and the marketing. So on the property, how is the landscaping? How are the ceiling tiles? How does the place look, feel, smell, show? At the end of the day, you're dealing with people. So for example, office properties, you may say, well, it's a business decision. It's not emotional. Heck, if it's not emotional, if I'm looking for space for my employees and my agents, it's real emotional. I want them to be in a great environment. So don't think it's not emotional. Make sure the property shows well. On the deliverables, look at your deliverables, your leases, your income and expense records, the improvements you've done of the property. Look at how those deliverables are looking. We took over an assignment from a national company that couldn't sell an office complex, and I saw one of the problems was the deliverables from the owner. Great people, they did a great job managing the property, but the way they submitted their income and expense and history and things just wasn't very suitable for getting a new loan. So we had to spend a lot of time on that, and to give a clear picture to the buyer what was going on, and to also put the information in a way that a buyer could get comfortable with it, and at the end of the day, their lender could get comfortable with it, and the appraisal. And we sold that property. It was a small office complex, sold for $3.7 million. So those are some of the tips for selling your property. We went over them very quickly. If you'd like more details or you have more questions, reach out to me. My email is michael@bullrealty.com, or you can always reach us through bullrealty.com. And let me know what you think. If you're listening on iTunes or Podomatic, or you're watching on YouTube or the show website, leave a comment. And thanks for being with us. Enjoy and prosper.